Oh, hey, come on in. Talking about phrasing today. Hello, friends and neighbors. Welcome back to the Brownstone. My name is Rich Brown. What'd you think of the new intro? Huh? You dig it? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're talking about phrasing, a topic that is so important for all of us, not just bass players. I mean everybody, because that's the thing that sets us apart from other musicians. That is what gives us our individual voice. Because at the end of the day, we're all playing the same 12 notes. So it's how we put those notes together that makes the real difference. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of exercises. In fact, I'm going to use the exercises that I talked about in the previous video. Basically 3-note sequence patterns going through a G major scale. And what we're going to do with those patterns is we're going to change the rhythms around ever so slightly to create different patterns. And there's 2 ways that we go about doing this. For those of you who didn't see the last video, here's what I'm talking about. So I have a 3-note pattern on a G major scale. The first 3 notes of the scale. And then what I do is I just play 1, 2, 3, 1. So then I take that sequence through the entire scale. So on and so forth. The thing about the sequential patterns that I give to my students is they're all very beautiful and they're all played very straight. And because they're played very straight, the comment that I hear more than any other comment is the fact that it sounds a lot like classical music, which is gorgeous. And I love that aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is, as electric bass players, we don't really play a lot of classical music. So what I want to do is I want to take these same exercises and phrase them in different ways to make them a little more funky and a little more applicable to different musical situations. So this could work for jazz or rock or blues or funk or neo soul or what have you. But again, the cool thing about these is that they're subjective. Some people are going to like some of them, while some will like others. And that's totally cool. Perfect example is what I'm about to get into. So if I take this 3-note pattern, so I've taken the 3-note pattern and what I've done is I've stretched out over 4 beats, whether 8th note or 16th note, depending on how I play them. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to say 4 beats. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here's what I want to do with that. I want to put a rest at the end to create a 5th note. So now I'm playing a 5-note sequence, which just gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what I want to do is move that rest. So if I move that rest back 1 note, I get a different phrase, which sounds like 1, 2, 3, rest, 5. So all I've done was I've taken the rest at the end of the phrase, moved it back a note, so that now 2, 3, rest, 5. So my 5-note phrase becomes a new thing. That's the phrase. So then what I'll do is I'll take this new phrase through the G major scale and I'll play it to a metronome. And a 1 is all set up over here at 80 BPM with beats 1 and 3 turned off. So all I'm going to hear is the 2 and 4. And then I'll just play the exercise.
2, 3, 4.
Okay, so do you remember what I said about these phrases being subjective? I wasn't really big on that phrase. Didn't like it that much. Kind of corny, not too much happening as far as soul. So what can we do? Well, we can take that phrase. See where I'm going? If you've been watching this channel, you probably know what I'm going to say. We're going to take that phrase and shift it by a 16th note. So then what happens is we start the same 5-note phrase, 5-note grouping on the E of 1 instead of on the 1. Starting it on the 1, to me, kind of corny. But let's see what happens if we move that phrase by a 16th note and start it on the E of 1. Check this out. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, to me, that's much better. I don't know about y'all, but that has much more soul. That's got a little more funk to it and a little more hipness. I dig that. So we can keep moving this through the bar. We can keep taking this phrase, started on the and of the 1, which might sound a little corny again, but then you started on the E of the 1 and it sounds hip once again. Now that's just one way that we can keep changing our phrase. The other way that we can change the phrase is if we keep moving our rest. So the rest right now is happening on the 4th note of our 5-note grouping. So we can move that back one more time to the 3rd note of our 5-note grouping, which gives us 1, 2, rest, 4, 5. So that would sound like right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the exercise again. This time I'm going to skip the 1 and go straight to the E of 1 because I kind of like where things sound when we start on the E of 1. This is also very important because now I'm starting to place more of an emphasis on the parts of the bar that I know cool things will happen upon. So starting on the E of 1, I know that's going to be hip. So I'll start on the E of 1. I can also do this on the Ah of 1. I know that's going to be hip. So I can do that as well. So now let's just play the exercise with the rest on our 3rd note of our 5-note grouping. And then hear what that sounds like.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So that sounded pretty good to me. I don't know about y'all, but I like that. So you see what we can do here is we can take one exercise and play that exercise in a multitude of ways, because we can either move it across the bar, and then we can also put a rest at the very end of our phrase and then move that rest through our grouping, our 5-note grouping. And this is great because we can do this with any exercise. Any exercise that you can think of that involves more than a couple of notes, you can do the same thing and create different phrases and hear how that sounds against a click, a metronome, a backbeat, however you want to do it. So we've opened up an incredible new world filled with so many phrases, and I suggest you do this. This is only the 2nd video in our series all about sequential patterns to play on a major and a minor scale. We haven't even gotten into the minor scales yet. But the cool thing is like all of these patterns that I'm going to show you over the next couple of videos, you can adapt in this way. So what I did to start was I played an ascending 3-note pattern through the scale. So what I can also do is play an alternating pattern through the scale. That's another exercise that we covered in the last video, where I played the first 3 notes of the scale ascending, and then the second set of 3 notes descending. So I have 1, 2, 3, and I go back to 1. And then here I play 4, 3, 2, and I go back to 4. So then I can play this same phrase. But check out, I'm going to do something a little bit different here, because I can stick to the pattern, I can learn the pattern, and I can learn the grouping and the new phrasing that I've the new phrase that I've come up with using this 5-note grouping. But I also want to be able to interact with that phrase a little bit and then start to play around with the rhythm in a way that allows me to use my original phrase as kind of a theme, right? So then everything that I play, even though it's improvised, is in reference to the original phrase. This is something I talked a little bit about in the first series that I did, all about playing to a metronome. You can play those rhythms, but you also have the opportunity to mess around with those rhythms a little bit and let them influence you in ways that you might not have thought of if you didn't have that initial spark from the original rhythm. So I'm going to play that. I'm going to do that with this new exercise. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this second phrase where we have our rest on the third beat of our 5-note grouping. And then I'm going to play an alternating pattern through the G major scale, starting on the E of 1. You got all that? I hope I do. Let's hear what that sounds like. So I'm just going to play around with that rhythm a little bit, but I'm going to maintain the structure of the exercise. In other words, the notes that I play are going to be an alternating 3-note pattern on a G major scale. You dig? Okay, here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So that was cool. That's a fun way to play that exercise. So what I did there was I started with the alternating pattern and then I just played a descending pattern. But I went with it. I went with the moment and I started to try to improvise using that initial phrase of putting our rest right in the middle, right on the third note of our 5-note grouping. So you can see how cool things can really happen just by changing things around. And again, you can move the rest, move where you're putting that space in the 5-note grouping. And then with each of those new phrases, you can move them through the bar. Kind of cool, right? Let's do one more of these. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move the rest one more time. So it was on the third note of our 5-note grouping. So now I'm going to move it back to the second note of our 5-note grouping just to hear what that sounds like. It might be great. It might be corny as all. I don't know. But let's try it and see. This is what, to me, this is what practicing is all about. Trying some new ideas, asking yourself questions. What would happen if I tried this? What would happen if I tried that? It's those questions, answering those questions, that allows you to find the things that you like and the things that you can then add to your vocabulary. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to phrasing and establishing your own voice so that your phrasing becomes unique to you. Because all we're doing here is we're taking very simple ideas, and in trying those ideas, we are finding the ones that really resonate with us. Again, this is going to be different for different people. That's the beauty of these exercises. I'm not telling you exactly what to play, and I'm not telling you that you have to like everything that I'm showing you. But there are going to be those phrases that you play and you just say, oh man, this is killing. I like this. You have to remember that. In fact, one thing that I used to do is write down all of the examples. Anytime I had a question about what I wanted to try with a certain exercise, I would write that down. And I would have like pages of these little phrases. And then every once in a while, there'd be little phrases that I would mark as being really great or not so great. And I would practice the ones that really resonated with me or really moved me on an emotional level. Those things that make you go, oh man, that's killing. If you say that, that phrase is yours. You have to realize that. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Same thing, I'm gonna start on the E of 1, this time placing the rest on the second note of our 5-note grouping. And I'm taking a 3-note sequential phrase through the G major scale. You got all that? All right, here we go. So our phrase, let's just hear the phrase. The phrase is gonna sound like this. So if I have my 3-note pattern, volume, 3-note pattern, 1, 2, 3, 1. Now, we place our rest on that second beat. So 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is the phrase that I will now start on the E of 1 and take through the G major scale. And a 1, let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I like it. Sounds good to me. How about you? Be honest. Maybe it sounded great. Maybe it sounded corny. It's all up to you. So again, find those phrases that you like, keep those phrases, practice those phrases, and also change the exercise so that you're playing different, here we've got 3 notes that I'm dealing with. So, what else can you use with 3 notes? You can play triads. You can alternate those triads. You can do a whole thing just working on 3-note sequences in the scale and then switching to triads. And then moving the rest of our 5-note grouping and then moving each phrase through the bar, shifting by 16th notes. It's a lot of work. If I did all that right now, it'd be like a 3-hour video. But that's the beauty of getting into the practice room and working on these things, because that time can fly by like an instant because you're constantly asking yourself these questions, trying new things with different exercises and exploring different rhythmic possibilities to really establish your own vocabulary and understand what moves you rhythmically. That's what this video is basically all about. Taking different sequential exercises and turning them into something kind of fun so that you can spend a lot of time in the practice room having fun and really learning to play this instrument and really be the best musician that you can possibly be. Listen, I'm going to leave it there for now and leave you with that little bit of information. Hey, if you like this video, please do me a huge favor. Click like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to let you know when new videos will be released. And as always, you can also donate to the channel if you find that this lesson or any of the lessons on this channel has been of some value to you. No donation is too large or too small, and anything you can give is greatly appreciated. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to keep on practicing. And my name is Rich Brown, and this has been The Brownstone, and I'm glad you stopped by. Come on back. I'll be here again soon. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.